not be joining. It's hardly 15 minutes till now. That's fine. So today we have two more topics to cover. If time permits, let's see any other additional topics if required to cover. So with this, we will be completing the SAS base, what we call with the base SAS, that will be completing with today's session. So we have two topics for us to complete. One is an SAS ODS. It's a very small topic that we can complete the first step, and later we have another topic called as a SAS graph, so which is like preparing some kind of a visualizations using the SAS procedures. So all that will be covering in this today's topic. If time permits, let's see, or this would be the sufficient topics which you can face any kind of an interviews or some. So that would be enough for understanding the entire basis. So this is actually the entire basis, which we'll be completing today. So tomorrow we have the last topics that we need to cover for the other part of SAS called Advanced SAS, in which we'll be dealing with the two topics of it called as an SQL, that is in the SAS SQL, what all statements we can use under the SAS, how the benefits you can have it under the SAS with the SQL. So all that we'll be discussing tomorrow, as well as there is one more topic called as an macros, SAS macros. So that will be the tomorrow's topic, which will be completing the entire SAS course by tomorrow. So probably if required, we'll discuss, we'll have more time apart from the schedule. For today, the time would be sufficient, which will be covering within the 2 hours of these two topics. And if you have any questions related to this one of whatever the basis we have covered, so we can discuss it after the session today. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know after the session so that we can have some kind of a question and answer kind of thing and clarify all your doubts. But with tomorrow's session, we'll be completing the entire SAS part, right? So while in the next week, we'll have them Tableau. So that would, let's see with the schedule, how it extends. So generally from the Ematicus, we have like 8 hours of time, so which will be completing all the basic and advanced charts. If something else to be covered, we'll see, right? So this is how we can plan it for this week and the next week. That is a schedule, right? So now I have shared an email. I think everyone have received it for the today's topic. Please check with it. And I have already shared the codes in them. Please try to upload it to your University Edition or SAS on demand, whatever it is, before we start executing the queries or we start writing or understanding the programming. So please do that. Okay, already shared an email to all of them. I think everyone have received it. All right, so let me start. So this is like a topic called as an ODS, Output Delivery System. One of the feature which SAS has it for sharing the report to any kind of an format, any type of an external format we say. So you remember in the previous session we discussed about a topic called as an SAS stat, where we have worked on the different statistical measures to display the report based on certain procedures. Now here, whatever the report you are going to generate, by defaultly that report can be sent to anyone with any other file format that you wanted to do it. Let's say the file format can be an HTML or PDF or RTF or any other type of files that you wanted to create. But probably from your observation that you have done so far onto the SAS programming, in our window of SAS, that is in the result window or the output window, you might have observed that any report that is getting generated is default in HTML, or else you also have another option of downloading it as a PDF or might be an Word or RTF files. That is a default feature of this SAS Studio, right? So apart from that, if you wanted to make it, that would be sufficient, but there are few other features which this will help your report to be more stylish, more fancier, or more colorful if you wanted to say. All that can be enabled using this facility of ODS. So let's see with all that. So now, to allow more stylish and fancier reports, we require this concept of ODS, Output Delivery System. So certainly, what all the types of output we can create is, we generally create in the basis whatever the output we will be able to display, that we call it as a listing report. Listing is nothing but any report which is printed one below the other in a text kind of a format with no table kind of representation. We generally call it as a listing report or a standard report. And in the previous sessions, we've also observed that output out is one of the statement we have used to even store the result or anything to one other type of a data set. So that is also one kind of a reporting we can even consider it. Apart from that, any external files that you're going to create like HTML, PDF or RTF, printer related, PCL related, or any kind of a documents or even the XML, you can create all that, right? So these are all that you can create using this facility called as an ODS. Okay. So now let's say if this is a data set you have and you are going to apply your templates, the background colors or any other font sizes that you wanted to fix it for your report, all that you can enable using this ODS facility, which makes your report more fancier. That's it. The next one is generally, if we execute these kind of a procedures, we see that we call these as a standard report. In the base version, we have this reporting that gets displayed something like this, which is we call it as a listing report. But the same report can be enabled to display with a little more fancier way. We can say this as an HTML output. So what is that we are supposed to do? The coding in edition is in the University Edition or in the SAS on demand, that is a SAS Studio as a product. It doesn't require to create all that. But generally in the other version SAS, you are supposed to write additional statements to create a report to an HTML format. In the SAS Studio, it's a by default, but in any other format, any other applications, we are supposed to write this code. So what is that in addition you are writing is ODS, the type of extension or the type of file format you wanted to create it, whether it can be a body page or a file, the path, and the extension is a mandatory. And whatever the format you're opening, you're supposed to close them. So that is what you're just writing in addition. So that's how it can get created to your HTML pages from the SAS by creating your reports. So one who is much more familiar with the HTML, there is a facility within the SAS that you can create lot much of HTML pages without writing a huge code of any HTML programming at all. So for example, if I consider this as an HTML report, we can call this as a frames. This is the body page. This is the table of content. This is the table pages. All that we require to create it while developing some kind of an HTML pages or web pages. So in order to do this, in generally in an HTML, we write a lot much of code, but instead here, we just only write a few keywords to create all that. Okay. You cannot try this on the SAS Studio because it is not interrelated or connected to your web pages directly. So this doesn't work, but you can please remember the syntaxes. So here we have the keyword. If you wanted to create a body page, if you wanted to create a contents, frames, pages, or any other website links or the hyperlinks that you wanted to create, even that all can be enabled with these only the keywords that you specify, the file names and the extensions. Automatically, the redirection to each page, all the coding related to that particular types of files you are going to create, everything will be handled by the SAS only. So it's very simple to create all that, right? So this one, we call it as an SAS HTML output with frames. All with the frames and everything, we can get it created. So similarly, we have something else that we can create it using the ODS facility is like you can create your PDF files. The only change you do is ODS, PDF, and the file format, file closing, and the extension. Only these three things you'll be doing it. Apart from that, every other format is automatically managed by SAS. ODS PDF, ODS RTF, ODS printer, ODS XML, any other types of an extensions we can create it, right? Even the Excel can also be created, but that is not a right way because Excel carries a data, not a report. So we generally don't create an Excel file formats as a result carrier. Just will be storing the data to it. So that we can say that's a reporting differently. Okay. So just having this ODS facility, we can just create all the different types of file formats where the reports can be saved. So this is how we can work with different types of files. The only point is the file format, extension, and closing. So that is required for us, right? And next is one other facility. In this, which we are going to learn more commonly, is if you wanted to enable some kind of a colors or a themes which are already existing within the SaaS, we can make our report more stylish and more fancier with the help of existing themes. So the themes are nothing but you can make some kind of a templates to be enabled on your report. You have a statement called style equals to the name of a style you can specify so that certain theme of your output can be changed. So how do we know that the themes are available in SaaS and what all themes we can enable it? How do we know that themes are present? So in order to do that, we have a procedure called proc template. There is a new procedure called proc template list styles. If one statement is there, if we just execute it, it will show the list of all the templates which are available. So in this version, that is in the SaaS Studio, we have almost like 57 themes available. In the older version, it is something around like a 32 styles available just by style equals to the style name. So if you just enable it, you'll have certain change in your themes of your output. So that can be enabled by this ODS facility, right? So this is one other point. There is one more point which need to be identified or recognized is we have one other statement called ODS trace on, off, output. Few statements are there. So what it means? If you have observed that in the previous sessions, we executed a lot of many procedures like proc means, proc univariate, proc t-test, so on, right? So whenever it is getting generated, it creates all the stats which are displayed on your output window. Certainly, if you wanted to display or not display, so like a procedure called summary, which will not create your output. So what is happening? If you are applying these kind of procedures on some numerous data sets, there is a lot much of output that is getting generated. So certainly, few procedures you might be using for not to display your output, like summary or something, you can even turn off your output to be displayed every time for the statistics that you're generating it. But as a programmer, how can someone confirm that all the statistics you have been generating on the different data sets have been created or not? So generally, a programmer looks into the log window for that, because in the log window, it shows whether that has been executed or not, or what all the stats have been generated or not. So when you are executing a procedure like proc means, it simply shows that the procedure has been executed, but not what stats have been generated, we do not know that. So in order to generate an additional output, giving some understanding over what type of statistical measures have been executed, we have a statement called ODS trace on, which helps to trace some additional statistical information displayed on your log window, so that if someone is sharing their report or code to someone, if they save the log window, the entire additional information is saved or stored into the log window for additional confirmation. So for that reason, we use this ODS trace facility. Okay, so that's first point. The next point is, you might have remembered in the last session that we discussed, like we have executed proc univariate as a procedure. So univariate procedure do not have any control on your output. Once after you just execute it, it will be generating all the descriptive stats on the data set that you're providing it, right? So which is creating a huge output where you do not have any control on the output that you wanted to display it. So certainly there is a statement called ODS select, so which can go to display only certain statistics from our output. It can restrict your output whichever the statistical measures or the result that you wanted to display, there is a statement called ODS select or ODS exclude, which can select or exclude the output that you wanted to display it. So these are all the facilities which we can do it with the ODS concept or ODS facility within the SAS, right? So this is very simple, easy to understand, and we'll try to work on with them with some examples. Clear, everyone? Any questions so far?
No.
Right.
Thank you.
So we'll try to work on them on execution. So please, everyone, try to upload the files which I've already shared it to you. If it is done, let me know, so that we'll try to work on the examples part. Please check your email. I've shared an SAS ODS from today's email. In that you can see SAS ODS quotes. Try to upload it to your SAS on demand or university edition. You have 3 files.
Yeah, we are done.
Okay. So fine. So first of all, what I want to display is I'm just going to create one data set called boats, in which I have something called as a proc print to execute. So when I'm just executing it, you see this is a basic data set which got displayed. Along with this, we have an options of downloading this 3 as a default from the university edition, that is from the product of SAS is SAS Studio. So if you just click on it, you can download the PDF or HTML or RTF file. Here it is, even the RTF is also not enabled. It is like a disabled thing. Now, in order to get your HTML files, so what we are going to do it. So the only code that we are enabling now is ODS HTML file equals to the file name, where I wanted to save it to some raw data within the my folders, some name, let's say dsp21.html, and closing it. So once you just execute it, you'll be able to see that it creates a report. So here the problem I have is physical file does not exist, because as this I'm using it with the on-demand version, it cannot create any kind of a files on the physical disk. So where you can specify it, you have to specify the file part to the files itself, that is from the files home, only from here. Okay, so let's take a path of it. Let's try. So I'm just taking a path of it, properties, that is home/home with the unique username and slash dsp21.html. So once after you execute it, you should be able to create a file. So that is dsp.html. So if you just open it, the similar type of file gets downloaded, which is an HTML output that you can see it from here, right? Similarly, it can be a PDF file, or it can be an HTML file, or HTML already we have seen it. It can be an RTF file or something. If you wanted to make some changes, you can make some changes to the existing one. So I just wanted to make it as PDF, dsp21.pdf, as well as the PDF extension. I'm making the changes to that because the file path which I specified is my home files within SAS Studio. So again, we can create a PDF file as well. So this is the PDF format which gets downloaded, and you can see the report, right? So this is how we can create our PDF files or any other report files using the different file formats, right? So similarly, other syntaxes have been provided here. The syntax remains the same. The only thing is the file path should be given to your SAS Studio as per the version that you're using. Whether you're using a Studio with the university edition, then this path is required. If you're using on demand, then this is how like the certain path can be given. to store the files to your server, right? So this is how we can create it. And the other one is ODS styles. So let's see.
Krishna,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Sorry. No
Um,
problem.
can I save the file into your system?
My system in the sense.
Um, you, my ID is your ID is showing somewhere else, right? You so and so number.
Right.
If I give a path network location, can it be saved anywhere?
I don't think so, because this is specific to a user. So this user might be in which server, I'm not sure where it can be saved. So the server which you are accessing is from other place, so might not be connected to all the users at a one single server. Just give a try. I haven't tried any time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
U39217269. Just give a try, giving some name of like your name. Let's see if that can create or not. As far as my understanding, it will not do that because the servers are connected from different places. We don't know from which user which server is getting connected. Let's see, give it a try. There is nothing wrong to try.
It's not throwing up anything.
Okay. Any error specifically?
Nothing.
Okay. Because it cannot recognize the user ID, and from the user, the path again, the home files are restricted to the particular authentication of a user. So probably that might not be possible. Okay.
Okay, I'm not for a particular user, not from my user to your user. But if I'm connected to any network,
Then you
can
can
I
do it.
give that
Yes, yes.
location?
Then you can, if you're connected
Yeah.
through within the
Okay.
in the real time, it is like a server you have. In the server, you have some all the different types of clients connecting to the server. So obviously they're all connected networkly, like towards to a network. So where they can have all the sharing part. Even the codes can also be shared. Not only these reports, even the codings and everything, that snippets and everything can be shared within the network. That is possible,
Thank you.
right? The next point is, as we have seen this report, which is a standard HTML, now I wanted to make this reports more graphical, or let's say more stylish or more fancier. So how we can do that? Let's see. So I just wanted to create the similar type of a file, ODS HTML file equals to the path, right? And you might have observed one other new statement that I've added here is ODS HTML style equals to some style name. So how do I come to know whether these styles are available or not? So for this, we are just going to execute a procedure from the line number 55, that is proc template list styles. If you just execute it, you should be able to see the number of styles available in this particular version, where you can see almost like 57 styles. That is style name, styles.pearl, styles.ocean, styles.normal, netdraw, moonflower, something. So whatever the style you wanted to create, or that is nothing but some kind of a thing, you can copy that and just place the name from this style. Let's say some moonflower or something. And there is one more statement called ODS graphics on. So this ODS graphics on is a statement, not mandatory, but by defaultly SAS will support many other colors. So if you wanted to have any other new colors which are not, might not be a part of your SAS coding, you have to just enable this statement so that it can work with any other colors available in it. So for that reason, we are just using the statement called ODS graphics on. So now, how do we know the different colors which are available? From the SAS and Pen documentation, we got different colors. The same colors have been copied from there to another file for you people to work on easily. So there is a document provided called SAS colors. So in this document, you can see the list of all the color names which are available, even the shortcut names of it. So you can see lilac, green, lime, magenta, so on. So no color codes are required for us. So let's assume I wanted to give some color name. For example, let's say I have wanted to display this color, very light greenish blue. So instead of writing the full name, we can just write a short form of this color, VLIGB. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste it here. The small change in the syntax is that from the line number 49, proc print style of data. Now we write data equals to, but here we are writing like a style of data because we wanted to embed some kind of a styles to be applied to that particular data set. So within the flower braces, you have to specify whether you wanted that to be as a background color or you want to have like a foreground colors, so on. Many things can be specified, even the font size, font weight, many things can be embedded here. So just for the understanding purpose, I have given only one, that is a background color. So title, nothing. ODS HTML close and ODS graphics off. So what are the statements you have executed? You're just changing it. Now if you just execute it, we should be able to see some change as it is getting applied with the theme. Not a huge changes, but at least a little bit of change from the traditional HTML output. That observations we can do it from this place. Okay. Okay, so this is some little change we have. The background color with some change in the theme got changed because of the statement that we have executed is the styles. Okay, so this is how we can execute with certain styles by enabling onto the HTML output with some background colors or any other colors that can be embedded over this, right? Now you can open the second one, that is applying multiple colors. So please everyone open the second SAS file from execution for ODS. If everyone opened, then please go to this data set we have. There is some data set called some expenditure revenues or something, EXPREV. So the data set which we are going to create here is a country, employee ID, order ID, ship date, sale type, quantity, price, cost, so on. So now, when we are creating this data set and printing out a result, we wanted some changes to be there for the output, applying different colors for different variables. So how do I create it? So just let me give the path, because here the path is getting changed. So instead of DS22, I'll write it as new report.html. So see the syntaxes, please observe here. Proc print data equals to dataset name. I hope everyone remembered the split statement. N stands for the count of the data. Observations is I want to display it as observation name number. So now I wanted to apply certain styles for each of it. Style of n equals to I want to display this particular count as with the style as italic. The font size I wanted to make it bigger. I want to display with certain color called purple. The headers, observations and everything with some background color as in yellow. So I'm defining all the styles for these headers, and the footer of this should be in the different colors and different style of the font that I want to display it. Coming to the next, we are specifying the variables, that is variable called country. I wanted to apply a particular style for this, defining some background color as well as the foreground color. Similarly, for other variable called sale type, I want to display it as pink color. For the variable called price, I want to display it as an orange. The rest of everything, already you guys know, the labeling part, formatting it, ODS HTML close, and everything remains same. Now if you just execute, see that The same kind of a report now generated with different colors based on the representation. So the yellow color, each variable with 3 different colors, and at the bottom you can see it's a purple color with the font italic and the font size as 20. Okay, so this is how you can just enable multiple colors to different variables and display it along with some styles. And these are all the options, more number of having like a changing the font styles, font weights, everything you can enable them. So this is how we can create more number of codings with having the report more stylish or fancier way.
We have dates also, no, in the data set.
Yes, but I'm representing only 3 variables, right? Where, country, sale type, and price. So where is a statement we specified for only for 3 variables it is displayed. So if you want to display any other variables, yes, you can define. Okay.
If I want to have a display of date also,
You can
then I
do
have
that.
to write
Yes, let's say where order date, ship date. So I'll specify that where order date, but I'm not defining any colors as of now. So let's print it with this in a traditional manner. Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm not given any other colors or something to be displayed. Where order date, something called ship date, all these are there. So when I'm just keeping on adding, that variables get displayed, but you don't have any other colors, nothing will be coming up. It will be a basic representation of that variable will be printed.
So the data what we normally do in SAS is cleansed data, right?
No, it's a cleansed data, yes.
For raw data, we cannot perform anything here.
Oh, Rimtej, if you remember, the very first we worked on the different types of raw data also, like text files, CSV files, Excel file. So all that is done.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have worked on. I mean, we created those tables that day.
No, we have created everything, right?
I mean, if the data is in the form of in Excel or something,
Mm-hmm.
if you are if you're loading data like what we do normally in Python,
Mm-hmm. No.
Can we perform cleaning on the Excel sheets of using SAS?
What type of cleaning you want? Like, just tell me with one example so that I'll help you out with this.
Like suppose if there are some missing values or any negative values are there,
Mm-hmm.
or improper format is there, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general, I'm asking.
Right.
Can we perform a cleansing kind of thing on raw data set?
Okay. So do you remember in one of the session we discussed about all the formats, informats, applying some kind of a conditions using different procedures. So that is almost like a part of a cleansing, right? So did you remember missing values can be replaced with something using some procedures, using some condition statements. We have replaced the values. We have deleted the values. We have done some kind of all that.
That we have done like for I mean, very few records, 2-3 records we created, and like, my question is like if we have a huge amount of data, then
Yes.
how can we deal using SAS?
See. So here the one point, let's say, anyways, just give me 2 minutes of time on this. So the very first, when we started learning it, how we started with the SAS is, we started to work with collection of data, right? I hope you remember all that,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
this collection of a data might be done from even a text files or a CXV files or from an Excel files. I think you remembered all that, right? So
Yes.
all this collection, when you're doing it, it is created as a data set within the SAS, right? So once the data set is created, whether the type of a data it is, we have made it as a SAS data set to be stored. It is an independent data set which might be of n size, right? So we have worked on a very smaller data, that is fine, but whatever the files that you can import it and do with the data, it can be n size of the data that you can work on, right? After that, we made to organize. What do you mean by organize? Like, for example, I wanted to find out what is the standard data, non-standard data, so that we have applied some kind of a formats and informats concept. I hope you remembered it, because we wanted to make the SAS to understand the data, or any kind of a other values. We have done that. So which would be also a part of a cleansing kind of thing. The other cleansings that you have done is applying some kind of a condition statements or a procedures to replace the missing values, or even you have applied some condition statements to eliminate or even update the values. All that you have done, right? So once after that is done, even you have done some kind of an analysis. So analysis based on some kind of a functions that you have applied onto the SAS programming, as well as some different procedures to do some statistical measures and everything in the last class, right? After this is done, normally we call it as an interpretation. So interpretation is based on a domain knowledge, whether these results that you have created is right or wrong, so that it can be reported to someone. Now, as a part of this, we are going to see this concept of ODS reporting this for any other interpretations. So actually, this will come under the reporting part, not exactly the interpretation, which will be coming under the reporting. One is like we call it as an ODS. The other one is the visualizations, right? Making some kind of a graphical representations or any kind of a visualizations, we do it, right? So these are all the different phases that we have learned using this programming of this, generally called as a basis, right?
Okay.
So probably when you are comparing it with the Python, you might have do it taking one single file. Upon that, you have done some kind of a data cleansing. From that, you have done the sampling part. You have applied some kind of a train data, test data, and everything. So that is something different from this one which you have done so far. So this is how the phase wise we are cleaning it, doing it, working with the data as we are doing some kind of an analysis, reporting. This way we are working on the SAS part. Hope this is clear. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Actually I was comparing this with Python and I got confused.
Right. So how that would be there in the Python is here. Please remember that we are implementing the most of them into the data warehousing as a conceptualization onto the SAS, the first part, as a data warehousing. Onto the Python, you are mostly working with the, let's say, on data mining. So as per the subject lines, the both are different. Getting it?
Okay. Yes.
So data mining is something like you already have the data which you are doing as all the EDA part, and then you're directly applying kind of a sampling and you're applying some kind of an algorithm. Here we are implementing onto the subject line called as a data warehousing, because we are dealing with the huge data here. And certainly not only one particular source, might be any different type of a source it can be. Right. And there is no library concept
Okay.
here. So which is something different from that one.
Yeah.
So that mining is there. Here it is not the data mining. So as a subject line, it is something different.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Hope
Yeah.
if anyone
Thank you.
has a question, anyways, so thank you for this. If anyone else has a similar kind of a question, so by this they should be clear. Hope everyone is clear by this time. Right? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Right, guys. So this is the second one. Please open the third SAS file. There is something called ODS trace facility. Let's see with this concept. Okay. So this is the third one where we have small data set here called giant, where the variables consider name, color, days, and weight. So small data set which we are going to create. Let's first execute a small data set to be created called giant, on which now I wanted to see certain statistical measures applied on this data set. So please execute only the statements from 16 to 18, excluding the 15th and 19th statement of this program. Just only execute the 16 to 18. Proc means data equals to data set by color and run. You see that the statistical measures have been generated on this data with a color called red and yellow, which there is in the data set as a bifurcation, as a classification. Now, if you just go to the log window, you don't see anything apart from that, only just an execution of a procedure called means is executed. Right? Now, I wanted to not to have any kind of a display on my output. So when I just issued something called no print. So there is an option called no print. If I just execute it, we don't get a print of these statistical measures in the result window. Okay, so neither the print option nor a valid output statement has been given. So if this is a scenario, sorry,
I'm not getting it. Can you explain more understand?
okay. See, I'm just doing it from the very first again. Just create a data set called giant. Okay, so this particular data set consists of a variable called name, color, days, and weight, in which we have the name is Big Zack, Delicious, some names. We have two colors in this, the red color and the yellow color, as a bifurcation, where I wanted to create certain statistical measures using a procedure called proc means. Right? So proc means data equals to data set name and execute it, which you are able to display the statistical measures, that is the n, mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, as a default output for the procedure called proc means. So see in the log window that it is only showing that a proc means got executed. That's it. Nothing else was there. But what I wanted to see is I wanted to also know what all list of statistical measures have been generated so that I can share it to someone. These are all the stats I have been generating it. So for that reason, we are now embedding a statement called ODS trace on and ODS trace off before to the proc means, because I wanted to trace that statement and I want to trace off to come out of that tracing. Now if you just execute it, the result window remains the same, but now if you go to the log window, you see that some additional text has been generated. That is, output added is summary statistics. Upon the by group of red color, upon the by group of yellow color, some summary statistics have been generated on the data set is some additional output which we got generated it. So that when we are sharing the report to the client, even this information can also be saved and shared to them so that they can have a confirmation that these are all the stats have been generated. Normally it saves as a .log file, right? So that is the actual use of having this ODS trace on and off statements can be used. Is it clear, Basing, now about ODS trace? Right. Next one under this point is
Only for log files we go for trace.
only for the log file. So now how it happens is, as we have just gone through for only one single procedure, like upon the variable and the data set, it is very simple for us to recognize it. But when you are doing it for hundreds of data sets and hundreds of procedures like this, so it would be really difficult to see with the result of each and every output. Instead, a client would also request us to have the log window shared to them so that these can be analyzed for more errors or if anything is there, just for the confirmation purpose. So for that reason, we use this trace facility. Okay.
So what are the important features here in log files?
Important features is
Which client will be asking
like this one, like this is like which statistics have been generated, which is created some kind of a summary statistics. Okay. So on what it has been created, it has been created on a by group. That is upon we have used a by statement. So the by group, the bifurcation is upon the red color and the bifurcation it is on the yellow color. Right. So that kind of an additional summary stats have been displayed, adding this output to the log window.
and that is only if there are errors.
There is no errors. If there is an error, obviously the error can also be recorded. So that's the reason they check it. For example, I have not written some kind of a, let's say the statement is wrongly executed. So this is now giving some kind of an error along with this. So this can also be recorded in the log window. So for that reason, for the confirmation, require these ODS tracing facility to be enabled. Clear? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. So one other point is just observe this so that you'll get more clarity. Just line number 23, I have a procedure called proc univariate, data equals to data set. So if you just execute it, you see that there is a lot much of statistical measures that have been generated, right? So as we know that this procedure will generate all the descriptive stats for your all the variables present in a data set. It will be creating all that. Now, if you just use an ODS trace facility, so you have not used anything, it is not displaying anything. But generally, if we just use an ODS trace facility for this, now you'll get that in the log window, it creates all these additional output. So you can see this has been generated, all the extreme observations, quantiles, tests for locations, and basic measures, univariate analysis, and all the descriptions have been additionally added to your log window, right? So that way we can confirm these are all the stats have been generated for us. So in order to have a control over the output, normally this particular procedure do not have a control on its output. By default, it gets executed for your entire data set. In order to have your output to be like restricted, so what you can do is you have a statement called ODS select what statistical measures you wanted to display. For example, I have selected only the quantiles, 1 or 2. You can just write there what you want. Only that particular display can be controlled from this ODS select statement. Okay, so that is what one of the use of this procedure, and these particular statements, ODS trace on, ODS select, ODS exclude is also there. Excluding whatever you have defined it, the rest of other measures will be calculated. Right, so that way we can just use this facility called as ODS trace facility. From this entire concept of ODS concept, we have all these statements. Right? Is it clear? Everyone? Any questions so far on this topic? Any questions on this?
No, sir. Fine. Yes.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. So we have one more topic. I'll just share an email. You can just take, if you want, you can just take a break for a few minutes and get back. So that would be the last topic of the base SAS, which is little bigger, called as SAS graph. Okay. If you want a break, let me know. If you don't want, we can continue. Anything is fine. Break in the sense, not for too long, just only for 5 minutes. You can have a break and come back. Meanwhile, I'll share the
Okay.
material to you. Okay? We'll just meet in 5
Take a break
minutes
for 5
so
minutes.
that you can just take a break and come back in 5 minutes. Hello? Yes, yes. So I've shared an email. Please check it. Right. Can we start with another topic? Right. So this is also quite really very simple, but the only difficulty in this concept we'll have is remembering lot many options. There are lot many options which we have for different procedures. So that is the only difficulty you'll be having in this particular concept. Apart from that, the procedures are very, very simple. Right. For the initial 5 minutes, please try to listen for the one with the topic which I'm going to explain you about this is the SAS graph. So this has got embedded with lot many procedures. Again, from this component of SAS, generally represented as a component called SAS graph, which can do any kind of a visualizations onto the SAS with certain part of a coding. But whatever the screen we are able to see now with the presentation, there are some procedures here called proc gchat. The similar way we have something called as a proc chat. There is a procedure called proc plot and gplot. There is a procedure called proc G3D, a three-dimensional graphs can be created, and G bar line, a bars and lines can be created upon the visualizations. So depending upon the type of a data, the output that you wanted to generate or the different types of visualization you wanted to create, you can just execute these procedures. But the point to remember here is these particular procedures which are listed here are generally were there in the base SAS version, which is in the other version of the software of SAS. But what happened to this latest version of this particular SAS is, knowing these particular procedures, we can execute, but only certain procedures are getting executed. For example, you can see here, I'm going to execute a procedure called proc plot data equals to dataset name, plotting upon x and y axis with two variables of age and height, which will be giving us the representation, something like a text representation of a plotting. So this is for the procedure called plot, which we can do like this. Similarly, we have a procedures to create a chat kind of thing. A proc G chat, G stands for graphics. Without G is a proc chat, which is a textual representation. We can create a vertical bar, V bar, upon the variable which you can specify, where you are able to still create these kind of a bars with a text representation. But when it comes to the graphical part, the colorful part of it, making these visualizations more appealing, then we change this procedure to a G chat, graphical chat. Once we execute it, it shows that an representation like this, but obviously these procedures are now replaced with one other procedure called sgplot. Okay, so here in this version it is getting executed, but if you execute the same thing with the university edition, that will not execute. This is an on-demand. This procedure is active here, but the similar way, if we just execute it in the university edition, that is not active. So that we are unable to execute all these procedures like gchat, prot, g3d, gbar line, so on. These procedures are not working with that edition. So with more features and more functionalities and more capabilities, these procedures have been replaced with one other procedure called sgplot. So if you are learning this one single procedure, that would be sufficient for generating the different types of graphical representations. Lot many options have been enabled. So we just try to learn what all options are really required. If in future, if you wanted to add up more options to this, how to explore the options also, we'll try to understand from this from this procedure called sgplot, right? So as these procedures are working, we can even still try with the basic syntaxes like this: vertical bar, V bar, V bar 3D. There are many other options. So let me show you. So there is a vertical bar with 3 dimension. So V bar 3D. So if you just execute, you'll be getting a 3-dimensional view of these bars. Right. So if you wanted to create some kind of a more colors, so there are more statements which I'll also share. Uh, okay, so some of the options you can see the errors. Red is not a valid unit or graphics option, which is not taking it. So similarly, few of the options are not getting enabled from these editions or the version that we are going to use, because this is having some kind of a restrictions over it. So this kind of options cannot be executed here. But as I said you, the procedure called proc sgplot can do all that, except the colors. The different types of charts will be seeing it. Okay, so this is for your additional understanding, which I wanted to show that these procedures can also be executed in the other version, but which is not active in the university edition. So all of them has been replaced with one other procedure called sgplot. If you're trying to learn that, that would be more than sufficient, is what I wanted to see. But here, few of the procedures are getting executed. Even you can try with the syntaxes also, right? So now we'll start working on the first and the important procedure called the proc sgplot. So please everyone open the first one. Proc sgplot will parallelly work together on all these options. So because we have a lot many options here, we'll try to understand as many as possible. Okay, so this presentation is specifically for all the procedures related to this, not with the sgplot, because sgplot we can directly work on it. Here there is a huge examples, the different types of charts that we can create: vertical, horizontal, block, pie, donut, star. Only the keywords need to be given. So this is a block chart. This is horizontal, vertical with 3 dimensions. This is a pie, donut, sliced pie, and star charts. All that can be created. The syntaxes are also very simple, where you can just write a smaller code for generating all these types of different charts. Okay, later I'll also share you this charting options also, as because every time we are working with the university edition, with these procedures are not getting executed. But I'll also share you this related procedures programming syntaxes also, which you can work on the on-demand version. So some of them are working, some of them are not working, but just for understanding the syntaxes, you can go through them, right? So now we'll work with the procedure which is important for us to understand, is an sgplot. So please everyone open this first SAS file, proc sgplot. Okay, so now for creating it, I'm just picking up one of the data set which is already existing within the SAS. I'm creating a data set called cars, where the existing data set of SAS help.cars is a data set already we have it in that. We are just only picking up few variables from that. Some make, model, type, invoice, length, weight, so on. Where giving a condition, I wanted to pick only the few cars, that is Audi and BMW. So this is just for only for the understanding purpose. You can deal with any type of a data, any huge data also. Just for the understanding purpose, I'm going to create this small data set, because the graphical part would take little more time in execution when compared with the other, because it involves all the colorful graphical representations, also converting that to an HTML, which will be taking little bit of time. So to overcome them, I'm just using the existing data sets, which are small and easy to understand with the syntaxes, right? So once after you create, this is a small data set which has almost like 39 records with all these variables data. That is make, the conditional data we have created is Audi and BMW. The type of cars is sedan, sports, wagon, SUV, so on. Their cost and all the rest of information. Now let's try to create some kind of a visualizations over this data. So what is a procedure we are executing is proc sgplot data equals to data set, and only the keyword that you need to specify what you wanted to create a chart. So we have something called VBar, we have something called VBox. So many other options or many other types of charts can be created. So we have something called VBar, HBar. So if you just keep on typing the keywords, you have the list of all the types of charts that can be prepared, right? HBar basic, HBar param, HBox, horizontal box, all that we can create. So this is first one we are going to create is a vertical bar on any variable. Let's say I'm giving a variable called length, and the title if required, run, and you also see some other new statement called quit. So what is this? Is it a mandatory statement or not? So quit is a statement which is required but not a mandatory. As I said, it is involved with lot many graphical options which might be taking huge resources of it. When you are creating huge number of graphs, it might be a time consuming process. So in order to release the memory after each execution of your graph, we use a statement called quit. Quit will help you to release your memory after the graph is executed. So for that reason, we are using that. So you can see now, this has just created you the vertical bar on the length of the variable, which you have just specified it. Okay, it defaultly displays the frequency of the data because we specified VBar length. It by default gives us the frequency as a result. So now let's see it to give more number of options. So as I specified this to be created as a length of a bar, now we can even create it with the stacked bars. So line number 17, which I can just enabling one more option will help you to create a stacked bar. So what is that additional option we are going to do? In the line number 18, you can see after the VBar length slash, I wanted to apply an option on the variable. So normally we write an options on the along with the procedure. So if you see there are huge number of options again, this will be done overall onto the data set. Now the options which I'm specifying after the slash, which means it is going to create you the different options that to be enabled on the variable basis. So for each type of a chart, that is VBar, HBar, VBox, you have these lengthy or number of operations or sorry options you can perform, right? So for example, if you want to do it any other option, so what you can do is just click on it. You'll get the description over there where you can try to understand the description and enable if required. For example, I'm specifying a data label. So what do you mean by that? Displays the label for each data point. If you specify a variable, then the value of the variable are used for the data labels. So certainly the additional information is provided. Let's see this option later. So one other option I was just specifying is grouping of the data based on the type of cars. So I have different types of cars, then I want to do the grouping. So let's see, this is how it creates a stacked bar. So automatically the coloring has been given. Blue color with sports car, green with sedan, brown with wagon, orange with SUV, so on. So this is how the grouping has been done, which we can call it as a stacked bars, right? Certainly this visualization is not that clear to understand. Let's now make this to a clustered bar charts. How can you make this as a clustering? So I have an option called group display where I want to do the clustering. So cluster, I'll add one more option called data label as we have just seen earlier. So just by executing this option along with the procedure, what's there? Sorry. So data label. Now we can see this kind of representation along with the data labeling has been done. That is the clustering of it, the number of cars for each type of a cluster, all that you can see it, right? So this way, for each type of a chart, you can enable certain options for different types of a chart that you're going to create. which is purely with the coding and the options we have. Easier, but remembering the options would be a little bit difficult, but the procedure is only one, right? So you might have even done with the Python with matplotlib and GraphViz, kind of other different libraries or other type of label enabling things. You have created different types of graphs there. So here we are using a procedures in the SAS. So that's so simple. Okay. Next is with one more keyword called h bar, horizontal bar. So I've just given the keywords, but similarly, if you just use a slash, just a space, again the set of options can be given, the bar width, baseline, so on. The bar width, if you wanted to have the bar widths, so you can just specify how much of bar width you want. So all that you can just enable one after the other. Okay. So it is given the parameter value 5 is not within the required range. So if you're giving something wrong, so then it has to be rectified. So if the mistake is given something with a range, so you can even change it later on with the errors that you can modify. Okay. So all that, this is an horizontal. Certainly more number of options can be enabled if required, so on. Similarly, one other keyword is VBox, that is a vertical box and whiskers kind of thing. And you have something else called bubble chart. So as a part of a plotting, now we are creating bubbles here. So bubble, x-axis, y-axis,
Why
and
will not
z-axis.
get it box plot group by?
Sorry,
Why will not get it in box plot grouping and that group?
which grouping?
In a box graph, we want to see entire group. We have 4 variables, right?
I've given only one variable here, right? Length.
All that.
Only the keyword along with that variable name. As I specified only one variable, it will be showing only for one variable. If it is for multiple variables, it will give you for multiple variables. You can just keep on extending. That's what I said here. What all things you wanted to extend. Similarly, what all options you wanted to embed. You can just give lot many options here, which can be enabled to display many things to do for each. Right. So that is how you can do for that. Okay. The next one is a bubble, line number 41. So here we are specifying the x-axis with height, y-axis with weight, and size with like z-axis with the size, age. Now the options I'm going to use upon this is grouping to be done on the variable called sex, that is a gender, and the labeling I wanted to display it. So which is creating a bubble representation. So you can see this x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. So x-axis I specified is height, y-axis equals to weight we have. Right. So x-axis, y-axis, and upon the age, and you can see there is a data point or the data labeling is specified. The labeling of the data with the bubble size for smaller data, bigger size for the bigger data. This kind of bubble charts can also be created. Okay, so that is for the keyword called bubble. Now the similar type of thing with one other keyword we have called as a V line, vertical lines. So along with this, we can have few more options. Let's first understand the output, then we can go with the options. So V line on age, response variable here is height. I wanted to find out a statistical measure is a mean. There is one other option called markers. Let me show you that, as well as the grouping to be done on the gender again. If I just execute it, we see that the mean value will be created for each of this. And you can see this report generated for age and height with the two types of bifurcation, that is female and male. And you can see the females having the blue color with this representation, males having a dotted green line with this representation, is because of one of the option we have is the marker. So markers is one of the option which can help you to have the plotting and represented with a different kind of a bifurcation here, right? So this is one other type of a chart which we can create is a V line. Next is an heat map. I think you guys are most familiar with the heat maps to be created. So to find out the densities and having the points here. So here I'm just taking some little bit huge data for having the heat maps to be created. So the data set I'm going to create is SAS_help.heart, x equals to weight, and y-axis is a cholesterol. So it creates now with the heat maps on this. So frequency 0 to 20. So higher the density, we have this representation, which has almost got how many records in this? 5,209 records on this data, which has created this heat map. Okay, only the keyword is the heat map we have. The next one is series plotting. So what do you mean by series? Let's see with some other example. So the same procedure, going to take with a new other data set called SAS_help.electric with line number 61, where I'm just writing a condition on this data to be picking for the year greater than 2001, and there might be different types of customers there, residential or any other customers. Here we are picking only the residential customers. So upon x-axis, the type is equals to discrete. By defaultly, if you might have observed the first graph when you have executed, SAS will be generating a defaultly a midpoint value. Normally the midpoint value is considered for the SAS. So in order to get that actual values, we use a statement called discrete to get the actual values of it. Now, the series is what we create. X-axis on the variable called year. Again, taking a series, x-axis called year. The y-axis is a dual axis which I wanted to create. One of the value I wanted to find out is upon the coal. One other is upon the natural gas. So I wanted to see the power generation done upon this data with same axis of year, but a dual axis of y. What is the power generated by the coal? What is the power generated by natural gas? Obviously, the data labeling and y-axis values, we can now get it this way. So x-axis with year 2001 to 2005, coal with blue color and natural gas with line green dotted, and the labeling for each year is displayed. So this also we can create a dual axis charts onto the procedure of SGplot. Okay, and one other keyword we have is line number 74, histograms, density. Normally we have created this kind of an histograms even with the procedure called proc univariate with the keyword called histogram. Even there also we can create it, but here also in the procedure called proc SGplot, we can still have this keyword called histograms could be generated. That also we can create it. Okay, and one other is creating vertical bars, multiple vertical bars. So see this, how we can create. This is something a little bit different from the other types of bar charts. We are going to create a data set called SAS_help.broad sales, y-axis with some minimum, that is we can say what is the actual sales happened, what is the predicted sales kind of thing. So here the minimum value I'm just giving it is up to 2 lakh or something. Vertical bar on the variable called country, where the response we wanted to see is that one of the variable we have is a predicted value and the actual sale happened on the same thing. Now we wanted to make some options to see the what is the actual sale and what is the predicted sales. So we are going to create like a bar width and the transparency. So once we execute this, we'll find out this kind of a representation that is for three countries here: Canada, Germany, USA. So predicted sales are blue color, actual sales are green color, where we made the bar width so that we can understand it very clearly, as well as a transparency to observe which one has got the more sales or the lesser sales than expected in the predicted. We can even do this way by enabling these particular options. So that's how we can create this kind of a different types of vertical bars, horizontal bars, histograms, VBox, heat maps, everything from one single procedure on this SGplot. plot, right? So if you're just learning on these options and more number of options, if you wanted to explore, that would be great. But at least these options would be really sufficient for to understand on SGPlot. But still, if really someone is more interested to learn with certain other options and certain other types of charts, you can just open after the fourth, there is a SAS file called SAS SGPlot examples. If you wanted to open it, you can just open one other SAS file called SAS SGPlot examples, where you have got many other types of charts that can also be done from SGPlot only. So you can see the keyword called scatter. A scatter plots can be created also with a scatter plot, scatter with more options, grouping, clustering. Also on the other type of, already we have seen the series, we can even create some kind of a regression plotting using SGPlot, reg, XY, and CLI, CLM. So all that we can create it. But these are best done with the same procedures, proc, reg, and so on. But here also, as a SAS graph procedure, we can do them. And dotted dot plot, as well as horizontal box. Earlier we have seen is a V box. Now this is a horizontal box. Now for different variables on them. Also V bar and V line, vertical bar with vertical line. That is, for example, increase or decrease of your data as per the bars and lines created, V bar and V line. Along with this, with more lines of coding and more number of options, we can certainly create more type of visualizations using different options here. Let me show you that output. There's some data called stocks, in which where I'm going to create some series of it, where you can see this different colors, different types of lines, the headers, the thickness of them, everything can be customized. As you can see with these options like thickness, response, thick max, arrowhead shaped, arrow shaped, arrow scale. So there are few options which you can even do them all with these options, right? So this way you can just even try to explore more from these options that you have the SGPlot. Similarly, if you wanted to more deep dive into them, you can please open the last one, statements in SGPlot and other procedures. There is one more SAS file at the very last you have, which I've just shared. So histogram already we have seen, H bar we have seen, and V bar basic, bubble, heat map, and you can also go with some other examples like line number 46, the data set to create some kind of a polygon shaped. Okay, and going to line number 65 with a scatter plot, but with more number of options. Along with this, line number 75 with more type of representations on the data, as well as we can apply some kind of a symbols or the images, which we cannot execute it here because there is no certain PNG files. But still, if you wanted to display something with an images embedded, even that can also be done. Symbol image, this doesn't get executed because of the image files are not available with us, but still this is a syntax to give you some representation. Instead of this kind of images can also be displayed, but this is one of them. As well as the very last one is line number 103 with the waterfall. Keyword is waterfall, which can create a waterfall kind of representation. All this will be doing on the Tableau in a more other way, but here also this is possible within the SAS to create all these charts. And the very last one is line number 109. You have something called overlay 3D. Three-dimensional graphs can also be created. So there is some data called gridet. From that we are going to create it. So this is some syntax for that to create a 3-dimensional views also is possible from SAS. Length, height, weight and depth and everything, so that you can create some kind of a representations based on the data. The length of or the height of a mountain, the depth of a river, some kind of a GIS data can also be embedded. So all this you can do with a procedure called sgplot, right? So this is the extensive way of working on these procedures to go with lot many options to create any kind of a representations, right? So this is very much important to learn. The very first document or the first SAS file which I've shared, that would be more than sufficient. But if you just wanted to learn more, these are the additional 2 files which can help you out to go very in deeper with other options also. That will help you out to learn more about sgplot procedure. Similarly, we have another procedure to create some kind of a pie chart. So there is one other procedure called sgrender. So here, just earlier to this topic, we learned about a procedure called proc template. So rather than writing all the options for each individual procedure, we can just create a template and apply that template to your data set. That also can be done. So see with some of the options, we are going to define some template with some name called pie. So begin graph is the syntax and end graph is the closing for that. Layout opening and layout closing. And now we'll define all the options. Pie chart category, the type, data label allocation outside, category direction clockwise, starting with 180 degrees. The name of this chart would be pie, discrete values as a pie value and a title. So now, rather than creating every time these options, I just created one template and applying to a data set. So rather than writing the above to the below, we are writing everything above to this as a template and then calling upon the data set. So if you do that, you can even create some kind of a pie charts. Okay. So again, more options. As it was a plain pie chart, we have more options for this to enable. That is, earlier output is something we got outside is a label. Now I wanted the label to be inside. Okay, I wanted my skin of the display to be displayed in something else. So data skin equals to the options you have, like sheen, or else you have something called gloss, many other options. So just enable that. However you wanted to display it can be changed from these above options for each type of representation you wanted to create. This is now you've got all the representations inside, gloss finished and everything. Certainly, for more number of grouping or the different types of other adding more options, that is I got to create a grouping or done on the make. Okay, here it is now a sheen representation. Earlier was a gloss, now it's a sheen. So just by adding these options, we can display these representations. One of the outer pie is for the Audi car, and the other one is the type of the other make is BMW with the inner pie. So all this you can create within this particular representations, right? So this is one other procedure we have called sgrender. So after the sgplot, if you find something important, this procedure can also be learned as an sgrender. So this would be more than sufficient. Still, if you wanted to explore more, there are other procedures like scatter plot. We have seen a scatter, but there is a procedure called sgscatter. Similarly, more options over this, like more number of types of charts and options that can be embedded here. Similarly, sgpanel. So we have already worked with VBox. Similar to that, we have some other procedure called sgpanel. VBox, horizontal, vertical, many things can be done. But all these are like something in addition, which are not really required. But if you're sticking to this SGplot with other options, that would be more than sufficient for these procedures. Okay, so this is about the last part of the base SAS topic is SAS graph, which this procedure is important for us to learn. Is it clear, guys? Any questions so far on this? Any questions up till now on this topic or the previous topics? Guys, so with this, the concept of SAS graph is complete. So if you still have any questions, please let me know. Any other questions, any other doubts to be clarified, please let me know. Bhavsing, Bhushan, Imtiaz, Sneha, Prashant.
No, sir, as of now. We
Okay.
need to practice a lot.
You have to practice a lot. There are a lot many options which are there. So practice is the only way, because these things will take a very smaller time to explain, but while you are practicing it, you have to remember as per the data and everything. So which is a time consuming process to go through different examples and different syntaxes here. But quite simply, like I don't say very simple, but these options are easier to remember. Once you practice it, it would be a good for you to understand and remember them. Okay, so not only this topic, right from the very first, do you have any other questions? Like already I've shown you the phases, like collection of the data, that we have worked with different topics so far, right from the very first. So do you guys have any questions on them from first till now? If no, you are good, it's fine. If you have any questions, please let me know. Anyone with any other questions?